Welcome to Shallow Deep Dive, where we take a deepish dive into the shallow world of branding, advertising, and creative. I'm Joe Qualls. Today, we're covering why we've started to think of ourselves more as editors than creators. There's a version of this job that lives in most people's heads, and it's a little out of date. In it, a client arrives with a problem and an empty page. They don't know what they want, only that they need something, and the agency's job is to conjure it, to walk in with the blank sheet and walk out with the idea. The value was in the making. You paid us because we could produce the thing you couldn't. For a long time, that was a fair description of the work. It isn't really the work anymore. The meeting has changed, and it changed while nobody announced it. Think about what a client brings into a first meeting now. Not a vague brief and a hopeful shrug. They've seen what 3 competitors did last quarter and can tell you why 2 of them missed. They've got a folder of references, brands they admire, a palette they keep coming back to, a tone of voice they've half articulated. Someone on their team has spun up a rough draft, maybe in a design tool, maybe with an AI sitting next to them so there's already something on the screen. They arrive informed and prepared in a way that would have been unusual 10 years ago and is now simply normal. The blank page turns up to the meeting already filled. And this is a good thing. We want to be clear about that because it's easy to hear it as a complaint, and it isn't one. A prepared client is a better client. The conversation starts further along. Nobody's pretending they have no taste and no opinions when they plainly do, but it does something to the shape of our value, and the something is worth naming because it's the whole point of this episode. When the page arrives full, the scarce skill is no longer filling it. It's knowing what on the page is worth keeping. That's editing. Not making the thing, deciding what of the thing survives, in what order, at what length, with what cut. And once you see the work that way, you can't unsee it. Most of what we actually do in a week is not generation. It's judgment applied to material that already exists. This reference is leading you somewhere true, and that one is a trap. This line is the position, and those 3 are hedges around it. This is the idea, and the rest is the scaffolding you built to reach it, which we can now quietly take away. The client brought the raw material. Our job is the cold eye they can't turn on their own work, because they made it and we didn't. Here's the part most people skip, and it's the part that matters. Editing sounds like the lesser craft. It sounds like tidying, the polish you do after the real work is finished, the red pen, the trim. That instinct has it exactly backwards. When everyone can generate, generation stops being the valuable thing because value follows scarcity and generation is no longer scarce. What's rare, now that a decent first draft is available to anyone with an afternoon and the right tools, is the ability to look at a pile of plausible options and say, with reasons, which one is right and why the others aren't. Anyone can produce. Very few people can tell what's worth producing. The market is quietly repricing those 2 skills. And the second one is the editors. There's a delicate thing inside this, though, and it's the reason editing is harder than it looks. When you edit your own work, killing a weak line only costs you your pride. When you edit a client's, you're removing something they brought, and often something they're attached to because they made it or half made it or fell for it on the drive over. Somewhere in every prepared client's folder is a darling, the reference they love that's pulling the whole project sideways, the clever line that has to go. Cutting it isn't a matter of being right. It's a matter of being useful without being wounding, of serving the work rather than overwriting it with our own voice. The aim is never to redo their idea as ours. It's to make their idea better by its own lights, and then get out of the way. Good editing and good feedback are close to the same skill, and both of them are mostly restraint. I'll admit this reframe comes easily to me because I came up in advertising in New York, and advertising was never a blank page either. You were always working with someone's actual product, someone's real business, someone's brand that already existed and already meant something to somebody. Nobody was inventing from nothing. The craft was knowing what to leave out, which true thing about the product to say, and which 9 equally true things to keep quiet, so the one that mattered had room to land. That was editing all along. We just didn't call it that because the empty page story sounded more like magic, and magic is easier to sell. There is one real risk in the prepared client, and naming it is part of our job too. Arriving prepared can look from the inside like arriving finished. You've done the reading, you've made the references, you've got a draft. Surely the thinking is mostly done, and what's left is execution. But preparation is raw material, not a plan. A folder of 40 references isn't a direction, it's 40 directions, and the work of choosing between them hasn't happened yet. It only feels like it has, because gathering is satisfying and looks a lot like deciding. So the first thing we're often really doing before a single word gets changed is telling the difference between a client who has a position and a client who has a lot of tabs open. Both walk in prepared. Only one of them has actually chosen. Helping the second become the first is most of the value, and it's pure editing, the structural pass, done on a brief instead of a page. None of this makes us less involved in the work. If anything, it puts us closer to the part that counts. We're not standing at the empty page doing the trick the client couldn't. We're standing next to a full one, doing the harder thing they can't do for themselves. Reading their own material with a stranger's eye and telling them plainly what's worth keeping. The blank page was never the difficult part of this job. Deciding what deserves to stay always was. That hasn't changed. It's just finally visible now that everyone shows up with the page already full. Thank you for indulging us in today's shallow deep dive. We hope you'll join us for the next one. Until then, take care.